Welcome to the Sober by Design podcast, where we explore the many pathways to recovery and a better life through conversations with a wide array of guests. Whether you're sober curious, in recovery, or simply looking to improve your mental health and well-being, this podcast will have something for you. Each week, we sit down with inspiring guests from all walks of life who share their personal stories of struggle and triumph, offering valuable insights and practical advice on how to design a life worth living. From addiction and mental health to spirituality and creativity, we cover a wide range of topics that are relevant to anyone seeking to live a more fulfilling and authentic life. So join us on this journey of discovery, growth, and transformation, and start designing a new life. All right, everybody, welcome to the Sober by Design podcast. Today we have a guest, Nichole Hamilton. Nichole is CEO of The Kids Coach, and I'm going to let her talk a little bit about that more. But first, I just want to welcome Nichole to the podcast. And how you doing today, Nichole?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me, Corey. I'm super excited to where this conversation is going to go.
Yeah, I'm super excited too. One, because you're in the future from where I am right now. You're literally a day ahead. So that's pretty cool. This is the first time doing a podcast with anybody from Australia. And
oh, yay.
Yeah. I have done Canada, but not Australia. So
I'm lucky to be the first. Excellent.
Yes. So I normally start these out just asking people a little bit about how they grew up and where they grew up. I think it's important to kind of set a baseline for people to understand, who you are now didn't just start there, right? Like you are you today because of what you experienced over the course of your life. So if you could just give us a little like 0 to 18 kind of timeline, that'd be great.
Yeah, easy. So I'm in South Australia, which is Adelaide, for those who don't know Australia. So I grew up in the suburbs until I was about in grade 3, which is around that 7-year-old age mark. And then we moved to the Barossa, which is country. So, very small town, country schools, country people, chickens, horses, cows, you name it. And it was a beautiful kind of wholesome lifestyle, very cliquey that I found it, moving from being the outsider. I didn't grow up in the generations of the country families. I guess I found it hard to start again at that, 7-year-old age to fit in with the, kids at school. And I grew up there. My family, my mum and dad's still together to this day, amazing parents. I have a brother. I went all the way through to, to high school and then met my ex-husband now, but very young when I was 16, 17. Yeah, a lot of the journey that I have now as that kids coach goes back to those times. I know where I was either bullied or shut down my emotions, or different things happened in my childhood where I felt probably not good enough at certain times. But on the all, I had very wholesome, loving, growing up environment. I always knew that I could go to my parents, I could talk to them about anything, I could make mistakes. Nothing was off the table. Although the one thing that I guess I rebelled against in my teenage years, my mum and dad had very strict ideas of what I couldn't do when I was, 15, 16, 17. I couldn't catch the, train by myself into town. I wasn't allowed to dye my hair until I was 16. I definitely wasn't allowed to drink alcohol. In Australia, we're allowed to drink at 18. So my rebellious part started there when I would, don't tell me no. I can get away with it, by hiding things and lying. But that's probably 0 to 18.
Yeah. And then, so you were obviously in a relationship with, your ex-husband or, soon to be husband at this point.
Yes.
Supportive family.
Yes.
But you're rebelling against that
Yes.
sort of like, strict household, which I can see, right? Like there's this, that is, I guess, a common story. Not my story, but common story nonetheless. And, so what happens at 18? Do you like leave the house and just go crazy? Yeah.
Pretty well. So my ex-husband, Craig, he is 7 years older than me. So I loved, being, diving into that adult world. I started drinking at a young age and got introduced to party drugs at that age, like LSD, and then it moved to methamphetamines, and we used to kind of ecstasy, so MDMA, and kind of dabbled in that world just on and off, like from my 18 to 20s, and that was something that was just a crazy time. Like I loved a good time. I'd try anything, partied, a lot of raves, a lot of music. And was trusting in the people that I was hanging around. I did get sober. Like I had my first child at 25, so we got married, and in between this time got sober, and in that next bracket, I guess I did everything that I was meant to do. Got married, built a big, beautiful house, had the 2 beautiful cars, traveled overseas, had this corporate job, had all these things that were meant to be, keep it making me happy. And I was deeply unhappy. And that's when the amphetamines came back into both of our lives, me and my ex-husband, and it got out of control. Like we were what we call functioning addicts, but we were spending all our money on our addiction. And we both had been to drug and alcohol counseling and doctors and tried to get this, get ourselves back on track. And multiple times we get sober for certain periods of time and then just go back. And for me, I can only obviously talk about my own personal story. It got really dark. Like I remember my drug of choice was crystal meth. I don't know how you guys call it over in the States, but it was smoking it in a glass pipe. That was my choice. And I remember smoking it one year, wrapping Christmas presents, thinking I'm so done with this. I hate this. And then, fast forward a year later, I was doing the same thing. I was deeply unhappy, and I was using it as a coping mechanism to shut down my emotions. And it wasn't until I had one session of hypnotherapy, it wasn't until I actually went looking for another modality of healing that I was like, I know why I did this. Like I literally had the key. I had this beautiful session, and I got the key because I was looking for my sobriety throughout all of this. I wanted to be sober. I saw my two lives. I was like, I can go this way and I can be in my light with my kids and sober, or I can continue down this track and end up, dead. Like I can end up dead. And I started this personal development journey at 30, I think it was. I'm 42 now. And it was just so euphoric. I was like, I know why I did this. Like I had a pretty good childhood. I had the things that I, was meant to do with society, but I was still so deeply unhappy within who Nichole was meant to be. I was searching for this out. And so the addiction for me kept me alive, kept me through my, my darkest times. But it wasn't until afterwards I look back, I was like, wow, like it was just a suppressant. I was, not happy. I'd done all these things. And from that, and because I started diving into the unconscious healings and the different modalities that are out there for healing and mental health, I was like, this is what I'm meant to do. I'm meant to be a coach. I'm meant to talk to people about the alternative options when it comes to sobriety, because not all methods work for all people. General counseling or doctors or medications may or may not work. Right. So I started my sober journey about nearly 13 years ago.
Yeah, 30 and about 13 years ago. Couple quick questions. There was a lot there, so
I know.
No, it's all good. I like it. So you had your first child. You have two.
I have 3 now. So I have 2 to my ex-husband, 2 boys that I biologically carried. I have a wife now.
Okay.
And she carried our little girl who's 3. So I have a 17-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 3-year-old. Okay.
And, my story does not include the same substances as yours. So like, I know crystal meth and I know sort of about it, but I can't 100% relate to it. But like at the time that you were wrapping gifts for your children and using crystal meth, like from what I know of it, like I can imagine that was a very hard way to parent too, right? Like, and just be in your day-to-day life. Was it, were you, because like what I know of is like you're up all the time and like it's just a different type of atmosphere, or was for you, was it calming?
For me, like, I mean, I don't know what I look like from the outside. I can only remember what I look like from my version. But I was quite functioning. Like I would, I had my own business. I was a beauty therapist. I could go to the bathroom and use, and then get back into, back into functioning. My kids never saw it. Like I'd do it in the bathroom when they were asleep. But it numbed me. I've had a couple of relapses in this 12 years. I'm happy to talk about, but I've never gone back to smoking it every single day or anything like that. And I just don't like it. But for me, I think I'm ADHD. Pretty sure I'm waiting to be diagnosed. So it kind of made me more focused, calmer, but very numb, very, very numb. Staying up multiple days in a row, not good though. But yeah, it would help me kind of laser focus and be able to function, to do the things that I wanted to do. But it's a very numbing drug.
Yeah. And the amphetamine thing kind of checks out with ADHD, because I guess like the medications that they prescribe to people like are kind of in that same chemical compound, right? They're like a click or two away from like cocaine. I mean, that's, the chemical compounds are very similar. And so you're going through all this, something's going wrong, and you're sitting there one Christmas. The next Christmas you come around and you're in the same spot. And then you said hypnotherapy. Was it just like out of the blue, you're like, I need hypnotherapy? Or did like somebody prompt you on that?
Yeah, I had no idea what hypnotherapy was. I literally met a friend of mine through a dancing community, and she's like, oh, my boyfriend's a hypnotherapist. And I had no idea. I just intuitively knew I needed that. And when I met this beautiful soul, he stared at me, and he was obviously an energetic healer too. My whole body tingled, and I was like, is he doing it? I can't look at him. Is he hypnotizing me? I had no idea what hypnosis was and positive language, and I just booked a session. I just knew that that's what I needed. But it wasn't until a year after that session that I started studying it myself and realized the profound effects it can have on our mental health. And I haven't really stopped studying since. Unconscious therapy and word therapy and all the things that we can use is so powerful.
Yeah. I did hypnotherapy sessions with somebody a couple of years ago, and I was turned on to my person through a woman I was doing EFT with, and and then she's like, I think you're ready for hypnotherapy. Like, as if I had gone through like some gate of like the therapy world, right? Like, now you're ready. And it was good. It was it was a lot different for me. I don't know that I had a profound moment, but it was helpful. And some of that probably is also who I am as a person. I'm like a little bit more closed off. You might be a little bit more like open, and I think everybody reacts to these things all differently. So
100%. And I think that the best thing about coaches and the unconscious world and any type of modality is, for anybody listening, pick somebody that you like. And if you don't vibe with that person and that modality doesn't work for you, then try something else. Right. For me, hypnotherapy and energetic work like changed my life. But I've tried many modalities since then, breath work and ice bath and cold therapies and meditation and all different things. It's a continual growth, and there is a right practitioner, a right coach, a right something out there for you. That's just the thing that comes to me, is that there's so many different versions and options, and so many teachers out there for us all.
Yeah, there is a lot out there, and just knowing, I mean, for somebody that has a problem, right? So like if they're in either a mental crisis or they're in a substance use, to think that they would know where to go to examine, these 30 different options or however many there are, right? Like that's crazy, right? At that time, you can't pull yourself out of it to even think like, one, I need help, and then two, be able to investigate all these different things. So to have somebody like yourself say, okay, I see you're here and these are your challenges. Here's 4 good ideas for right now that might that might work, right? Like, and I think that that's such a powerful, service to offer people in that moment. So that's awesome. So I just want to get back to your timeline a little bit. You're 30, you find sobriety at this point, and you start on a new journey. You're still married at that point?
Yes.
Okay. So when does the next major life change happen? Because like that is a major life change, I'm guessing.
Yeah, 33, I met my wife.
Okay.
And I've really been diving hard into this personal development world, like studying hypnosis and changing my business from a beauty business to more of a energetic healing kind of coaching world. My beautiful parents had actually moved in with me and my ex-husband to help us get back on track financially. And it was just, it was a really hard time. And my ex and I believe, like our journey had finished. He wasn't supportive of me growing into that, this new Nichole, whoever she was. And I had always known that I was bisexual. And I just met this beautiful woman and fell in love with it. And I knew that my timeline was done with my ex. So that was a big challenge. We had been had like a polyamorous relationship before, where we'd had invited other people in that. But he'd always known that I was, loved women. And for me, I guess that was another big challenge, is actually putting it out and telling the world, basically. My mum knew that I was bisexual, but nobody in my close world, or even online world, or clients knew that I was. And so being able to speak my truth and share with the world who Nichole really was, introducing myself with a girlfriend was a new part, especially to my kids as well. I'm very blessed that the universe and the world that I created, I did not get much backlash or anything like that. It was very welcoming. A few, but majority. My dad was great. He was so funny. When I told him, he was like, "Oh, if I thought it'd be anybody, I thought it'd be your brother." So, my dad's old school. He's 70 now. So, to tell my dad that, 9 years ago, it was huge.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know, I feel like I've lived like 10 lives this journey on this earth, addiction, mother, ADHD, coming out bisexual, divorce. I've lived so many different things, but I honestly believe that me being able to be deeply vulnerable about all of these things gives other human beings hope. Like, oh my God, she's been through that challenge too. And, I've had mental health and suicidal thoughts and depression and anxiety and, other areas of addiction that cropped up after sobriety, got into too much work or different things, or eating bad foods. But yeah, I put everything out in my content to inspire and help others.
Right. And coming, at that point when you say to, your circle, hey, this is who I am, right? That's a big moment too, right? So like you're going through a divorce and then you're announcing, this is who I am and this is who I, have always been. There's probably a lot of emotion around that. Were you in a good enough place? Like, I guess, did you have any challenges at that moment, like with substance, and go like, this feels so uncomfortable, like I'm going to need something to get me through this? Or were you strong enough at that moment?
Good pickup. It wasn't until after, I don't think I was strong enough in those moments to speak my truth. But I did have a relapse around that kind of, I think, maybe when I'd like sold the house and gone through that, there was a moment of time of weakness, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I crushed it very quick. Yeah, 100%. But it was a good learning curve, because I had tried that again, and I was like, fuck, I don't want this. Like, sorry for swearing, if we're not allowed to swear here. But it was a really good reminder of, the energies, because I'd started working on my own mental health and personal development. And I was like, this is a really good reminder of what I do not want in my being and in my life.
Right. Yeah. Like
A lot of times what I'll say to people is like, you know, you're in a bad time and in your head you're thinking, oh, I'll go do that thing that made me feel better because it's going to make that bad time somehow good, but it doesn't. It just kind of, if you think about it, you can play that story ahead and go like, oh yeah, that'll happen, and then I'll be 10 times worse off, right? So like that's what I try to do in that moment now is say, okay, I know I'm having a bad day, but if I had a drink, like would it actually get any better? No. Like I can play 100 stories and all of them are worse, right? Like if I just take a minute, you know, sit down, maybe have some tea, call a friend, whatever it is, like there's a lot of options before I have to get there now. And I think sometimes it just takes, you know, that setback to understand, hey, that wasn't the right way, you know, like that didn't make anything better, you know. And I think that you know, can happen and it's okay. Like I don't want people to think like and you're a perfect story of it, like that happened to you and that didn't set your life all the way back to that. You just kind of picked up and went, okay, I remembered all the stuff that I learned. I'm going to keep on going. And I think that that's important to hear.
Correct. And one of my coaches said to me, though, it's really good because I've had, you know, issues with alcohol as well. And I would beat myself up, like if I had too many drinks or whatever else, hadn't gone back to using drugs. But one of my coaches said to me, Nichole, don't beat yourself up. You're in the now and use it as a science experiment. How many times do scientists do the same process and then realize the outcome? If you're doing the same process and having a bad outcome, then change the process. Right. And so like what you're saying is, so think ahead, like, is that process going to be, yes, if I use drugs or if I drink alcohol, is it going to have, you know, what's my outcome the next few days? Am I going to be depressed? Is it going to help me? Is it going to make it worse? Yeah. And so now I think about it like that with anything. If I intake too much sugar, you know, whatever it is, I'm like, what is the process? Okay. Yeah. Is it going to make me? And the strength builds from those relapses, from those, you know, learning experiences, and not to hold that negative energy. Because if you beat yourself up about them, then you don't have the strength to continue. So yeah, I love that philosophy.
Yeah, sugar's a bad one for me, and you know, a tough one. It's like I do love a good treat. I love ice cream. I love donuts, and I know it's awful for me. And sometimes I'm really good. But like as you start to cut all the things out in your life, like there's only so many things left, right? And it's like, is sugar the worst thing? And at this point, it probably is the worst thing I do for myself. Like, you know, like that's what's left on the table. Like, and fruit doesn't cut it sometimes. You know, as much as I would love an apple to be like, oh, this is really making me feel better. Ice cream, you know, and so like, it's good to hear that other people struggle with these things. You know, have you found any ways to really navigate that world, or is it just consistently?
I think just awareness, like, you know, bringing awareness. For me, you know, it's taken me a really long time to get into such a strong mental health capacity, and it's the continued work. You know, you don't just work on one thing, like your addiction, and then you're done. All these other things start opening up. You're like, oh, I'm feeling unworthy here, or I wasn't voicing my words. That's why I was using these other distractions. And so for me, food comes in very quickly. It's the reason that we fill our body with food, because it's an instant relief of endorphins. You know, I've worked really hard, I don't have time, or whatever it is. But I used to think to myself, well, at least I'm laying in bed not drinking alcohol and not having drugs. I may as well eat, may as well use Uber Eats. You know, get that delivery. And so now I've, you know, learned through that. It's like, well, that doesn't make me feel good either. Like, you know, that does play on my mental health. So I know it's like that science experiment. I know when I move my body and I'm eating healthier and I'm drinking water, my body is functioning at such a higher frequency and vibration. I do genuinely love it. Am I going to give up coffee? Hell no. I love it. It's one of my things. Am I going to give up sugar completely? Probably not. But, you know, just knowing, you know, I know that when I feel tired after eating, it's not a good thing. I've eaten something that's processed or that's not aligned with how my body wants to function.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a thing of understanding why you're doing the behavior, right? Like I know if I'm eating ice cream because I'm out with the family and we're having a good time, and it's like we're out at the boardwalk, it's the summer, like that ice cream is so much different than the ice cream at 10 o'clock at night because I had a hard day, right? Like
Correct.
I know that in my head, and I say this, and I say it a lot on here, probably just to start to get that concept through a little bit to me. But again, it's, at this point, it's kind of the last
It's
mountain.
probably because your cup is empty and you haven't done something that day to nurture
Right.
yourself.
Yeah,
If your
that's
cup was
mostly what
full,
it
you wouldn't
is.
need it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's mostly what it is. And I think, you know, in the past, if I had been working out and had time, like those little things that, you talked a little bit about, like ice therapy or, a sauna or, working out, like people don't see those as therapy. But they
Oh,
are.
there's super.
They
Yeah.
are. And if you do them
Yeah.
at the right time in the day, then that nighttime thing doesn't happen. And if you don't make time for those, it can be a real problem. So I'm glad that you're putting them in that bucket of ideas, because a lot of people wouldn't. They see them as like additive, extra, things that you don't need to do, but they're super important.
100%. Body movement and ice bath is one of my things that I do daily. Like I built my own here. Love it. It really does help with my scatty mind. It helps me just my nervous system instantly calm down. I love it. Yeah, I get my kids to do it. Obviously, in the kids coaching, like my son does it as well. It's really interesting to see as well. So everybody's nervous system is different. And my son's autism he's more reserved. After jumping in cold therapy, you can't shut him up. He is so talkative, so he switches over. Whereas you chuck me in the ice bath, I just like instantly calm down. It's so interesting. Yeah.
So you just said you have a scatty mind. I like that term. And you had mentioned before ADHD and, these types of things. I have two boys. One is 18, the other one's 12. 18, laser focused, like, just straight laced, no thing. And then our 12-year-old is on the opposite spectrum. He is got a scatty mind, and we are in the midst of dealing with some of these challenges as he gets older. And, I'd be interested to hear kind of, when did you notice this in you? And like, was it early in life and you just kind of pushed it off, or has it built over time?
Good question. I think that I've always been an overthinker, always in my head, but I believe that females mask very easily. Like we're taught at a young age to fit in, and so I would mirror or copy other girls. I was always told off for talking too much. Can remember being distracted a lot. I'm still going through my whole process of here in Australia getting the full diagnosis and help from just a professional, because I want to understand it from their level. I understand it from my holistic level. But I honestly think that it's got worse because of the trauma of drug addiction. So I believe that because I self-medicated, obviously, with methamphetamines, and, that the scattiness could be a trauma, like the ADHD could be trauma based, as well as my genetics. But I love to personally, do it, like calm my mind with holistic modalities. I'm going through a diagnosis process, but I don't want to use the medications. But I'm very interested because I do work with kids that do have ADHD and do have diagnosis here, and I like to really understand it. And I follow their train of thought very easily, because that's how one of mine works. I interrupt, or I jump in, and my brain's already thinking of 5 things ahead. So I would say it's a mixture. I think that it started in childhood, but definitely progressed in later life to the point that it's sometimes very abrupt.
Yeah, it's weird, because I think, I don't know that my 12-year-old really kind of understood it, and now he's getting this like sort of clarity around it.
Mhm.
Not clarity, maybe more awareness, I would say.
Yeah.
He's on social media, he sees posts about ADHD and people who can't concentrate, and he's like, that's me. And
Mm.
almost in like a, I don't want to say negative, shameful way, but like it's like, oh, I'm a little bit different than somebody who can just like straight line think, right? And
Mm.
you know, and watching him kind of go through this over the past, I'd say, year, and you know, he had a real bright light about him, even though he was all over the place. It was like a bright light, and it's like we've always said, like we don't want to dim him out, so we've always kind of stayed away from the medicines.
Mhm.
We've done occupational therapy, and you know, I think that's taken as far as it could go. And now it's like, what do you do, right? Like, do you just kind of let him go and deal with it? And we see issues around in school, like with concentration, and you know, teachers aren't really loving that anymore. It's not cute when you're, you know, it's cute at a certain age, and then at like 12, 13, I think it starts to just become annoying to people. But I also
Yeah.
just wonder, like, if you just like let somebody go, they could do a lot, right? Like you managed to do a lot in your day, and it's not a challenge anymore. It's almost like a superpower, right?
Correct. That's what I was about to say. Like I honestly believe that yeah, let him be his amazing self. Find those coaches and mentors that are going to inspire him. Find other people that have ADHD and show him how amazing it can be. I can be hyper focused. I can run rings around other business owners because I can multitask like a mofo and just get shit done.
Right.
And I can really catch on to things. I don't need to know the full detail because I'm very decisive on the conversations and the things that need to get done. I can prioritize quickly, and I'm very creative.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, having this, I think it's a, you know, I wouldn't change it for the world. It is a super ability. I would suggest that he finds things that he loves and is passionate about that helps him regulate, because I'm more interested now in my diagnosis to know about the emotions, because I believe my emotions fluctuate a lot because of it. But my eldest son thinks that he's ADHD too, but he masks it. So he's like, you know, finds it hard to concentrate. But I believe in that body movement. So anything that you can do to focus and run it out. Definitely believe in like breath or cold therapy, but like find his hobbies, because he will be so focused on those and have the absolute intelligence for it. As far as education goes and not being helpful around those kind of things, I'm not a fan of education in any country, to be honest. Like it's just a system that fails. I'm all about inspiring the youth for the things that they have, that, you know, the abilities that they do have. As long as they can read and write. It's more about their emotional intelligence. That's so important at such a young age, so that they don't make the same mistakes as us, right?
Yeah.
You know, helping them regulate, helping them vocalize their emotions, their things that they're, you know, going through. But yeah, I think that sometimes TikTok and the social media world is too overwhelming for us. Like there's too much. There's too much. But finding some really cool people on, like, there are some amazing ADHD people on TikTok that you can learn from.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to parse out like what's good, what's bad. And yeah, that's a whole nother conversation, like the social media thing. But, you know, I do think it is a superpower if you can kind of let it be. And
Yes.
I just feel like maybe the education system kind of tries to dampen it. And I always go into his school, like at least once a year, I go into school and go like, you better not dim my kid out. Like he better still have that light at the end of this year. Like I've been saying that since kindergarten. And I just said it again today. So
I love that. And I think, I mean, I don't know what you have in the US, but, you know, making sure that there are the support systems in there. I know that as a parent, so any parent listening to this and going through this stuff, you can advocate for your children. You can take a subject line out if it's right, that they can go study, because they do need that time to concentrate. You can have movement breaks for your children that have these kind of things. Like you can really get those things in place with or without a diagnosis, because it's about their well-being. And literally the education system and the teachers out there are to enhance our children's growth.
Yeah.
So we kind of, as parents, you said before, it's not cute anymore. They're not really, you know, understanding it. Well, that's freaking bullshit, right? As a carer, as an advocate, as a person who helps children, they actually should be all for the child and go, okay, well, what is his learning needs? What do we need to do to support? How are these things? And a lot of parents go home and go, oh my God, my kid's naughty. I don't know what to do. They're being sent home. That is not on you. That is on the education department, and they're meant to. And they don't. It's not all the teacher's fault, because the KPIs in the background and what they have to deal with the systems. But sometimes as a parent, it's so overwhelming to support your child through their needs and their wants. So I'm a very big advocate. I go into bat for many of my clients and my kids for schools to better support them, and like you said, not dull their light out, because that is so important.
Yeah. I think this is probably a great transition point to what you do for kids, because I think, this is, I find a lot of my guests on, there's like a match site for podcasts, and that's how we got together. And, I think that was something that really drew me in. Like, I don't really see a lot of people who are focusing on working with kids. And I coached youth sports for a long time. I actually coached this past fall. There is something that is unique about working with kids. And if you get a kid that's engaged, it is amazing. Like, they can be amazing, and they can change who you are, and you help them change. And I think if you can do that, like, you're somebody that they'll remember forever. So you struck me because of this work. So if you could just kind of give me a high level of what you're doing for kids, that would be awesome.
Yeah. So whilst going through this journey and, developing my coaching skills and training, I'd had my little ones and getting sober. They were 3 and, 6 and nearly 7 getting sober. So I was, bringing home my personal development to my children and playing games with my kids about, anger and emotions. And I was just trying out what I was learning as an adult with my kids, using hypnotic language, anchoring in positive feelings. How do you know that? Because why? Like, just having these games. And in Adelaide, I kind of got known in our community to be the holistic, hypnotherapist, or whatever you want to call me, coach working with children. And I just downloaded, like, every time. I used to say this all the time, I don't know what I'm doing today. I say it to my wife, and she goes, yes, you do. And I get within front of a child, and it would download. Okay, we're doing this mindset game where we move between anger and peace. Or, I've got this idea about, seeing yourself when you were younger over here. And I would just make it games with colors and crystals or chalk or whatever, depending on the age group. And so it kind of, like, children picked me. And every single time I work with kids, I develop my own modality. I never work with a child and yes, they said yes. Didn't matter if the parents are paying or the disability service. I'd always ask, do you want to work with me? And if you don't, I'll find you someone better. So my connection and empowerment part was very important, like only working with children that would want to engage. And then as I started working with the teens and with parents' permission, I could talk about my sobriety and what I'd been through and depression. And it just developed from there. And about 3 years ago, working with my coach, he said, what do you do? Like, you've got all this skill set. You've worked with couples and, drug addicts and different things. What is your thing? And I cry. Like, I light up when a kid picks me. I just know that was what I was meant to do. And so I developed and I relabeled myself the kids coach. And I'm not reinventing a wheel or anything like that. I'm just bringing personal development to kids. And so I now teach others to do that. Like, I want to be Tony Robbins on a world stage, the Nicole Hamilton version, with a world of kids coaches out there filling in the gaps to brighten those lights, like you said, of the kids that have been doled out, So, and everybody can, I've got cooks and counselors and educators that have left the system, and OTs and coordinators and all different people doing kids coaching, because kids need so much. There's so many things you can do. You can play with them. You can, be a role model. You could do therapy if you're trained in therapy. When you become a kids coach, you're basically becoming a really good role model to hold space for a child who feels safe enough to engage with you, to help them through whatever they're going through. And that's what I'm put on this earth to do. So That's why I'm the kids coach.
Yeah. So you're doing the coaching, but now you're also training others to do what you do, so that
Correct.
there's more of these kids coaches out.
Yeah, I've got 118 in Australia, and I have my first one in Boston in the US.
In
That signed up.
Boston, my
Yeah.
favorite city. It is.
Is that?
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It is my favorite city. So if you are going to come to the States, I suggest Boston.
I will be.
Yeah.
I will definitely. I'll be coming. It's just it's on the to-do list.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I really do. For me, my community, it's it's engaging and coaching others. It's not a subscription or a franchise. It's encouraging others to live their life skills and help children. And so I do see myself, bringing these, this knowledge to others, and that's why I do these podcasts as well.
Yeah.
And it's to inspire others and to help families and children that do feel lost in their four walls, because I was trapped in my four walls, not wanting to be there anymore.
Yeah.
And through this work and through asking for help and changing directions, like, it's led me back full circle to really, teach what I know from my heart. And yeah, and I think that this is so important to keep the messages going, because in those moments there was, no podcast back then, 10 years ago when I was trying to get sober, there was no free information.
Right.
And so now if I can share it in any modality, in any way, then that's what I'm also meant to do.
Yeah. And like, so, if I put my, right now, so if I had a problem with my children now in the States, I would say, okay, my kid needs a therapist. And like, that's where we would go. Right. So like, I'm going to a therapist, but like my kids are going to fight hard against that. Right. I don't want to go to a therapist. Like, that's not for me. But like, coach seems so much different. And that is it's a gentler landing probably for some kids to go like, oh, I could work with a coach, right? Like, there's a certain thing that happens. It's a different environment too. And something that maybe we have them. I don't know. I have not come across kids coaches. I know that in my recovery coaching part-time thing, we do work with some teenagers. There's always challenges around it though. There's always a challenge. There's a legally, and that's a whole
I mean,
different thing.
I don't know what they are in the US,
Yeah.
but here in Australia, we have to have our working with children's clearances. We have to have all our insurances and that kind of thing as well. And obviously, I teach that. And now that I have a new US student, I'll have to get up on your policies over there. But it is a gentle approach. And the thing is, though, and I don't know what it is like over in the States, but I assume it's the same as Australia. No professional asks a child, do you want to work with me? That is the first thing. Why would you drag a child to another adult if they don't want to talk and communicate? And so it should be the first thing that's asked. Do you want to work with me? And if you don't, cool, I'll find you somebody else. And that can be in any profession. It doesn't matter to me if you're a coach or not. But empower the children to know that when they're asking for help, that not every single person is going to resonate with them. It is their choice to find that right person that, like, hey, I like you. You're a vibe. No kid's ever said no to me because I have such a pure heart. And when I say that to somebody, whether it's online on a Zoom or in person, they genuinely feel it, and they're like, no, I do want to work with you. And I'm like, awesome, what are we going to do? But I've given them that choice, and that is the biggest thing. Being there of service for somebody without an attachment or expectation to money or outcome. Just being of service to somebody is so important. And the kids feel it because they are still energetic. They get it. They're like, this person is for me. Yeah.
And how long does this go? Like, are you just said you have no expectations, but is this something like, in all honesty, I've been with my current therapist for, I don't know, 6 years, right? And like, sometimes I think, oh, this relationship's over, but then something happens and I'm like, I still need this relationship. And, we kind of, but now like it's spread out. Like, is this like, do you have a program? Do you have a set program? Or are you like reacting to the kid?
When I work with children, it's all intuitive and it's totally up to them. totally up to them, regardless of what the parent wants. I do include parents in therapy sessions too and train them too. But I always, so I have some autistic kids. It's 45 minutes sometimes enough. Sometimes they check out. I've had clients that I've had for years. I also then refer on if I believe the child's outgrown me, if they, need a male role model, if they need something else now. But I don't have an attachment to a certain time or amount. My style of coaching is different because I do love going deep into the therapy because I've spent, 10 years of studying NLP, hypnosis, mental health, and the rest. So I love going there if a child will let me with different ways and different mindset ways. And so sometimes kids come to me with just a single off problem, like I've got a phobia of this, and they might need 2 or 3 sessions. And some kids, want that full see me every fortnight. Mm-hmm. So, again, I leave that empowerment in the child, because regardless of whether their parents are paying or the disability sector here in Australia is paying for them because they've got a diagnosis, it's them, and that's how I get their energetic buy-in, is because I say, hey, this is about you. What do you need? And if I feel like they might need somebody else, I'm always about, as I said, there's 118 kids coaches that I have worked with, but I have so many other friends and mentors in this world that I can intuitively work out when maybe a child needs a different approach.
And you have your own kids too. So,
yes.
I would imagine, well, this is sort of like, I guess, a question of like, the cobbler and the shoes, or the plumber and the pipes. Like, how do you kind of take the coaching out of the parenting, or is it like, do the kids ever go like, hey, stop coaching me? Like,
I think I have a really open relationship with my children because they've seen me through different things. And, I talk to them openly now that they're older, in their teenage years, about addiction and about depression and the rest. When they were younger, they were actually way more open to the spiritual side and the holistic coaching. And now they're like, nah. However, the people that I have in my life, the role modeling that I sent, because the behaviors that I do, they're being coached subliminally now by my behaviors. And I have really freaking good kids. I'm so proud of them. A 17-year-old who's got his license and his own car and a savings for his house, and and an apprenticeship, and then a 14-year-old who just started applying for jobs because he's 14 now, and joined a gym, and they're active. Like, these things all take place. So I don't think I'm anything but Nichole. I'm just raw and real. And if they want to talk to me about stuff, they can, and if they don't, they don't. But I do fill them full of many other role models, because I do know that every child will relate differently to somebody else that sees them just as they are. So I have aunties and uncles, or the people that I really think that are trustworthy humans in their lives to pick up the slack where sometimes us parents need it.
Yeah, I think it's that's one thing I think that's come out of my sobriety, is like understanding who's good to have around, right? Mm-hmm. Like that is a big deal. Not only for myself, but then for my kids. My older son was 6 when I got sober, and then the younger one was like 1. So the 6-year-old saw, a little bit of it, and then my younger one, he wouldn't remember me as a drinker. But I think we've cut people out of the picture that might model behaviors that we don't want to see in the kids. And, I'm sure that you and, your wife are modeling behaviors day in and day out. So it's like, you're not really having to coach. It was like, I just wondered how many times you would slip into it. Cause sometimes I get a little preachy,
I still do. Like my teenager, he tests me, but I really want to have that open relationship that he can come to me with anything. I genuinely don't say no to things, because I know that I've seen before, like my parents were very strict. So I'd rather, you come to me deeply and honestly. My behaviors and values might be different than yours, but I've got to encourage him to make his own choices and mistakes too, and just love him unconditionally. So I have a very open, conversation with my kids about everything.
And I don't know that all parents do, I think, and it sounds like you try to treat your kids like adults, right? Like we try to bring
Humans,
our
like
kids.
little humans.
Yeah. Yeah.
To their level, every single child,
Yeah.
as a little human with emotions, to help them feel safe, and then giving them as much detail as I feel that is right for their knowledge and age.
Yeah. And not everybody does that. And I think those are the people that struggle sometimes.
Yeah.
I'll notice our kids in a room and they're just like a little bit more in tune with the room, and that's because we treat them like humans. Yeah, that's what it is, probably.
And the thing is as well, though, we weren't taught that, though. So you've got to imagine what other parents have grown up with or what children have grown up with. Their maps are outdated, And so where I've learned it from personal development. Was I that parent to my, 3-year-old and 6-year-old? No. Am I a completely different, mother to my 3-year-old now? Hell yes. Yeah. Is it better or worse? Who knows? But I'm just doing the very best that I can with the knowledge and the resources that I have. And that's all I can do.
Yeah. 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 I mean, yeah, even the parent I am now from 2 years ago was different, right? Like that's just, it evolves based on what I learn and, what my wife is learning and, it's a crazy thing, but you don't know how good of a job you're doing until like way further down the road, right? Like it's not something that we can judge when they're 3 or even 14 or really 8. Like, I have an 18-year-old. It's like, yeah, I've done a pretty good job up to now, but like he's still got a long way to go. Right? Like,
we're still going to be parenting when they're 40 and we're like 60, And my mom still worries about me. I'm 42, So I don't think it stops ever. And that's the other thing that some of the parents do ask me, like, they are older and they're like, is it too late for me to, learn this stuff or change? I was like, no, because even if you've got a 40-year-old child and you're 60, if you start your own business or start coaching children or change your language and speak more with love, that they're going to notice that at whatever age. Mm-hmm. And they're going to go, wow, if mum can do it or dad can do it, I can do it too. Right? Consciously or not consciously, but the modeling that we do, if we change for the better, always, betters humanity and especially our own family.
Yeah, we still want a parent to kind of tell us what they think, right? Like, I still want some input from my parents. Is this the right choice? Should I do this? Should I do that? And if they're, not there when you're 40, it still feels bad. That's the thing. It's, you're still looking for that. So that's awesome. And I guess, you have 119 coaches that you've trained. So at this point now, like you have your kids that you've influenced and now you're influencing, exponential amount of kids, which is amazing, right? Like you're helping to reset some sort of narrative in your country, like just based on the amount of coaches that you've put out, right? Like there's a lot of kids that are going to get help because you've trained these people. Is your goal to continue you said Tony Robbins, so obviously your goal is to continue to do this.
My goal is to just inspire the world, really. To look at, I'm calling in all coaches right across the world, people that have these skill sets, mums, dads, doctors, anyone that wants to help the youth, like I definitely am, to motivate others to look at these children as little humans and help them evolve, because I go back and do my healings and look at my sobriety and where I've made those choices and behaviors, and it's all because at some point or other I felt unheard, unworthy, not good enough. And that's not from my parents, that's from society and education and different things. And so if we can help that 7-year-old or that 12-year-old or whatever else be so connected and have their own self-love and self-confidence, imagine the 20-year-olds that grow up. Imagine the 30-year-olds that grow up. That is crazy. And whether they do or don't divulge into whatever, choices later on, that's up to them. But to be deeply connected to yourself and know your sense of self-worth, that's where the systems are failing. That's where medical and education is failing. We're not teaching them that. And it's there. I'm not redeveloping a wheel. I'm just going, hey, teach it to somebody younger.
Yeah. No, it makes a ton of sense. And then hopefully like they're better parents because of it. And like,
Correct. Yeah.
it's a great model. Just thinking back though, your practice is all one-on-one, right? You're not group coaching at this point, or like, I guess with
myself personally.
Well, yourself or people that you're working with.
No, they do both.
Okay.
They do both. So I work online, so I train groups and run retreats and workshops. I've got coaches right across Australia. They run kids programs from young kids to to teenagers. So every single kids coach is different. It's not like we're all say maybe yoga instructors where we do the same poses and the same things. Kids coaches are so variant. So some of my kids coaches are teachers, and they're doing one-on-ones, and then they're doing groups. Some of them are doing just one-on-ones. I do believe the majority probably are one-on-ones, but there are group coaches and stuff as well, and most of us are all online these days as well. That's the beauty of of our technology. We can.
Well, I'm going to make sure that I link all your your information on the show notes so that people can get in touch with you. One, to learn about like how to individually maybe work with you, but also if they're interested in becoming a coach, like what that looks like. And then your social media, so everything will be on the show notes. But before we go, I do end every podcast with, I'm a big fan of like music, books, movies, TV. And I'm guessing that you're going to have something good to recommend. I'm hoping. So if you had any recommendations on like the media front this week, I would 100% welcome that.
For our kids or for you?
For anybody. Like,
Well, I have really been into this week and last week into a Spotify playlist called Higher Mind by Bashar. I don't know if you've heard of Bashar.
No.
I really love him. He's a person that channels. He reminds me a lot of now why can I not remember his name? Reminds me a lot of a philosopher that I love. Damn it, it's gone out of my mind. But the way that he thinks about connecting unconditional love and changing our stories is just really, really cool. So
okay,
love it. I love listening because as I said before, ADHD. Anytime I can fill my mind when I'm driving or exercising. But Bashar, Higher Mind is the podcast that I'm listening to on Spotify.
Okay, I will link that in the notes as well. I guess my media recommendation this week isn't so much a specific thing, but it is a playlist that Spotify launched like a couple weeks ago. I saw it on social media, and you type in your day list, and it kind of orders the music that you are listening to like that day. So in that time. So like in the mornings recently, I've been taking like time to just listen to classical piano music. So now like every morning I get new recommendations for like different classical piano. And then in the evening it switches to more like folk music or whatever. Did
you say Spotify does that for you?
Yeah. You just type in day list, and it somehow, I guess it just looks at your listening patterns. So it's uniquely to you. And then it's uniquely to the day and time, which I thought was super interesting. So, I'm guessing if you continue to use it too much, you'd probably just fall into a rut. But, every once in a while, it's good to kind of go to it.
I'm going to have to look at that.
Yeah. And then for those of you that don't know, they do the same thing for like workout. So you could type in workout on Spotify, and it'll have a workout mix based on your listening habits. And there's like workout pop, workout rock, workout hip hop, workout EDM, and it's like your music, and it's all very like based on working out. So
love that. I'm going to use that because I definitely go to the gym and go to my dance studio. So
so that's my my recommendation for the week. Use the built-in playlists. So
again, and Alan Watts, that was the guy I was trying to think of. Alan Watts, have you ever listened to him?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God, you have to. So find him on Spotify as well because there's snippets.
Okay.
That philosopher has, very deep, amazing.
Great. Well, Nichole, I appreciate you being on today. Again, I hope people reach out to you. I think the work that you're doing with kids is amazing, and it can change sort of the next generation, which is really the hope. And it'll help us too. So
100%.
yeah.
Thank you so much for helping me share my story, because it's so appreciated.
Yeah. Great.
Be on these platforms.
Yeah. Well, we'll see everybody here next week. And again, if you could like, review, subscribe, it's much appreciated. And that's it.